Hello and good evening, everyone. Come on in. It is Tuesday, so that means it is Let's Talk Tuesday with Carrie Jemii. I am excited. Again, this is a month of Women's Month, History Month, and also I decided to again continue on Black History Month and honor Black women. So today is an awesome show I got in store for you guys. I got two amazing guests. It's just crazy because you know how you can meet people and their spirit just speaks to you automatically. And then you know you're around good people in Chicago when all good people know the same people, right? So these people are no strangers to me in different ways of my life. And I'm just very privileged to have them on the show today as we talk about Black women, educators, and education. So we have a lot of good goodies we're going to have today. I hope you guys get engaged. You know, of course, as always, put your questions in the chat and we will get to them as soon as possible. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guests, and they are both doctors in education. So we have Dr. Jeralyn Harris and Dr. Shaniqua Jones. Hi, ladies. How you guys doing?
Hello.
Hello, doing well.
Great. Well, thank you for being a guest on the show today. We are excited to get the conversation going. So I'm just going to go ahead and kick it off. We'll start with you, Jeralyn, since you're at the top here. Just tell us a little bit about your journey in the education sector.
All right. Well, I've been in education for 31 years. This is my 31st year as a teacher. I'm always a teacher, no matter what. I've been a principal for 23 years. I'm back to teaching.
Wow.
Yep, went from being a principal to back to teaching. I've been a college professor. I have always wanted to teach since 8th grade, and I'm still here.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to be a teacher too. I tried last year, but COVID wouldn't let me be great. So yeah, here we are. So, Dr. Shaniqua.
For me, I've been in education a little over 15 years. It started off in higher ed, and then I went to elementary ed. Now I'm in the high schools and in higher ed all at the same time. And even outside of that, being able to have my own organization, Purple Path, where we really hone in on the idea of what restorative justice and restorative practices are all about from a life application perspective. So everything I do leads to education, whether that was not like, I wish I had that calling, Dr. Harris, as it relates to wanting to be a teacher ever since 8th grade. That was the last thing I wanted to do, mainly because of my experiences, but that's a whole nother situation. But that's who I am and that journey to education.
Okay, I don't know. Is that my Wi-Fi? Because I know sometimes my Wi-Fi acts up. But okay. So really quickly, I know my aunt. She was a teacher for years too. I mean, 20 plus, 30 plus years or whatnot. And she said her favorite grade was sixth. Was it sixth grade? Sixth grade. What was your favorite grade to teach?
For
Let's start
me,
with you, Dr. Yeah, we did. Doesn't matter. Go ahead.
okay. So for me, that's a hard answer. I love middle school. 8th grade
Okay.
being my favorite in middle school. But now that I'm in high school, and part of that is because I am a middle school. I'm stuck at there myself. I'm a big kid, middle schooler at heart. Now that I'm working with high schoolers, I really love that age group as well.
Oh wow, interesting. And what's the difference? What's the difference in the dynamics? Like, you know, people make it seem like you're going to high school, you should be scared because the kids are going to have all these attitudes and all this. But
We don't let attitudes scare us. Grown-ups have them too. I think I'm more afraid of grown-ups than I am kids. They're all developmentally, they're created the same and they're developmentally the same. And then each of them is different in their own way. So
you just find a way to relate to them, basically.
Yeah.
Like meet them where they are. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Shaniqua.
Yeah, for me, I love high school. Love. One, I'm a mother of 5, and they are 14, 16, 17, 20, and 22. And
Whoa.
so automatically their friends become my children. So regardless if I have all the credentials and the position and the title, I'm automatically the mom on campus. I'm the go-to person. And I think for me, they keep me abreast in terms of reciprocity. So even if I want to teach them something about how to manage their anger and understand that anger is an emotion, and it's okay to get angry, but it's how you channel that anger that determines if, what the outcome will be. And meeting them where they are by first humanizing their experiences. So oftentimes when students are coming to my office, I tried to gangbang. I tried to, I was a teen mom. I tried to, fit in when I was made to stand out. So all these different things that they have experienced, I'm able to give them some tangible tools from a compassionate and an empathetic standpoint, because I've been there and I've done that. And so here I am now being able to come. My mom called me the comeback kid, and I wear that proudly. So yeah, I love it.
Awesome. That's amazing. I love to hear why people do what they do. So basically, that's what I'm just trying to set the stage here, to show people your passion, both of you guys' passion for what you do, because you do it so well. You both come really highly recommended from anyone I've talked to you about what you guys do. So it shows in your work. So I congratulate you today for being those type of teachers and what we need in our generation as far as educators as well.
Thank you.
So part of our conversation was, talking about Black women in education. When it comes to the classroom, do you think that it's important for Black kids to have Black teachers? And does race really matter in the classroom? We'll start with you, Dr. Shaniqua, on this one.
And I think that's where the controversy could come about. But this is something that I challenge everyone about. How can you best teach someone if you do not have a relationship, if you can't empathize and show any compassion about their experience, regardless if it's about race, gender, sexual orientation, all the different things that makes us the same, but yet makes us different. And so one of the things I was tasked to do this last school year in the midst of a pandemic is really hone in on the idea that, as we talk about COVID-19, that the number one virus in the world is racism. And oftentimes we try to dance around that subject, but I was glad that I had administration, and I'm a district administrator. So I was glad that I was able to give a discussion about the restorative approach to racial unrest. And I talked about all the different travesties over the years and how my mom, who's 81, her situation in terms of living down the street from when Emmett Till was killed, in terms of what we are facing in 2021, what has changed? A lot has changed, but a lot has remained the same. So I think it's very important that our children understand where they come from and be able to do that in a way that is represented well around the entire school campus.
Excellent answer. Dr. Harris, Dr. Jeralyn.
Okay, and I don't know if people always like my answer, but after 31 years, I just say what I want to and what I've experienced. But I do believe, let me start with this. I do believe, and I know that it is absolutely necessary for Black students to have Black teachers. And I think that white students should have white teachers. But I do also believe that schools should try as best possible to create a diverse learning experience as they can. We learn best from everyone, right?
Exactly.
So if you go to school, I have been a student at all Black schools. I've been a teacher at all Black schools. I've been a student at where I was in the minority, where there weren't as many Blacks. And I've been a student where there were just a variety of students of all races and cultures. As a matter of fact, my first years of teaching, I was a teacher. I don't know if you all know who Phil Donahue was, but I was a guest on his show as a teacher because I created a diverse learning experience for students way back in the 90s when they were fighting each other because of their cultural differences. I recognized then that students needed to see people who looked like them, who spoke like them, who were culturally the same as they are. And that was really critical. If you want to have the broadest opportunity for learning, you want people of all races and cultures. And of course, that's not always an ideal experience. So yes, we definitely need, Black students definitely need Black teachers. Male students must have male teachers. Black boys need Black teachers. But they also need Black women teachers, white women teachers. But we've got to be able to get ourselves to the place where we understand that we all bring something to the classroom and everyone can learn from having a diverse experience. That's huge.
It is. That was y'all both gave excellent. Go ahead, you can chime in.
I want to say real quick what I love, and I don't know if anybody know this, that we're all connected based off a spiritual background. But what Dr. Harris may not know is that I have admired her over the years since I was a child. And I remember when I first met you at Freedom Temple. And so I just want to give you your flowers now, because I know we just go in passing and we may, you know, I might like a post that you may share or vice versa. But I really want to give you your flowers now, because you were one of the reasons why I was able to push forward, and you may not have even known that.
I did. Oh, thank you.
That's so awesome. Yes, Freedom Temple is like a second church home for me as well. Like, I love Freedom Temple. I just love the spirit that's in that church. And I definitely agree. I was going to say, I brought that question up because I went to, I say my grammar school was kind of mixed, and I appreciated that. But then I chose to go to a school in Inglewood, which, you know, was pretty much all Black. But I also went to a college tour in my junior year of high school. I never really knew about HBCUs like that. But we went to all the HBCUs, and I was like, wait a minute, you know, this many, first of all, Black men was going to college, because they made it seem like that was a nominee within itself. Like, oh, you ain't go, you know, it's not gonna be all girls. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I brought that question up because when I went to the HBCU, it kind of made me a better person. It kind of grounded me to have teachers that looked like me, but were educated, had all these degrees. And I was just like, whoa, so it's possible. You know, it opened up my eyes to a different world. So I do believe in diversity. So I did get my master's degree at DePaul, which is a majority school, just what they call it, majority school, right? So, and it was a different experience, but I needed that experience too. So I agree with both of you, and I agree with what Jeralyn just said at the end, is diversity is necessary. But I know a lot of parents kind of battle that, is they should put their kids in a school that's all Black, or it should be mixed, should it be like this? But it's like, I don't know, you kind of need both the best of each world a little bit. So to be a better person.
If I can just say, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We be intentional about that. I went to HBCU, Morgan State University. I'm pushing it, plugging it in Baltimore. Right. But and there, let me say, I was educated at Morgan State University. I got my degrees from other schools, right? So I went through the motions and did what I had to do. But my education, my foundation came from that HBCU, and I am a firm believer that Black children should go to HBCUs. I stand on it.
Me too. I agree. It's something you can't even put your finger. I mean, it's an amazing experience, from the sorority, fraternity to teachers, to the whole experience. Going away to school and seeing people that was from Detroit and New York, but yet we were all kind of it was just, I can't even explain it. I love going to HBCU. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Someone said Morgan proud. Absolutely. So as it relates to schools in our community, what do you guys see are some of the biggest gaps in our education system, in our communities, some of the biggest deficiencies? I know we can't name them all, but so if you could stay with the main ones, that would be great. We'll start with you, Jeralyn, on this question.
So some of the biggest gaps, you said gaps in learning?
In our community, education gaps in our school.
And you're right, that is a big question. Like, this whole show could be about that. It's a big question.
3 or 2.
One of the biggest causes of the gap is inequity in education.
Okay.
Chicago, for example, I'm not even going to talk about just Chicago, but let's talk about urban schools. Too many urban schools systems are still segregated, which is shameful, right? They're still segregated. They're still taking property taxes from the neighborhoods where the neighborhood schools are located. You still have Chicago's north side schools don't look like their south side schools. You got some of Chicago schools that are packed with resources because of the property taxes that pour in. And then you got some of Chicago schools that look like prisons. No windows. There's no paint. The ceilings are falling apart. And I love CPS. My daughter and my son are CPS students. I'm proud of CPS. But I just believe that there are too many inequities in the resources that are provided for urban schools. But there's also a problem with a gap in quality teaching. You can't put the best teachers in the best schools and expect that, and then put the worst teachers in schools that are suffering and expect that those children thrive. Because good teachers, you put a good teacher in a bad school, and that school becomes a good school. Or you put good teachers in a school that's suffering, and that school becomes a great school. I don't care what it looks like or the resources it has, but we've got to have quality educators teaching our children. And that's
Yes.
another reason for the gaps in learning, I think.
Awesome. That was one of my questions on later, but you hit it on the head. Dr. Shaniqua, go ahead.
I think for me, what I have really seen in the midst of this pandemic is that many of the schools that lack resources is reactive in its approach. And when I say that, what I mean by that is that oftentimes what happened is that the parents or the families or the communities are not equipped with the proper resources. I call it the RST, the resources, the skills, and the tools to thrive in an academic arena. So what ended up happening is you get this pandemic that comes about, and now for me, it's been the silver lining that all of a sudden schools have, are giving out hotspots to make sure you have an internet connection, joining forces with all these different companies, AT&T and T-Mobile, to make sure that students have the best quality laptops or any other type of electronic device so they can log in. And for me, that has been one of the major reasons why many students that look like me or us don't thrive, because they don't have the resources until it becomes a matter of urgency. And then on top of that, what happens is, like what I'm seeing now is that for me, when I say again, the silver lining, that is one of the issues. But the silver lining in conjunction with that is that now that when students who look like us get ready to go to college, they're more equipped with understanding what the difference is between hybrid learning, remote learning, and having a little bit more self-discipline. How do you communicate a message? Because many of us are saying that communication is key, and that is false. It's comprehension, because you can communicate a message all day long, but if you're not comprehending the words that are coming out of my mouth, it's just going in one ear and out the other. So it's comprehension. So our children are now learning about the soft skills. Parents are learning what teachers are going through. Teachers are learning what parents are going through. And this is a perfect time for us to reimagine education and redefine the village.
Okay. So is that why they call you the Olivia Pope of Education?
I don't wear trench coats, but I wear my hoodies. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have a question from the audience. What would you say are the hazards of miseducation? And do you see miseducation in the educational school system? Absolutely. But I'll let you guys chime in on that.
I think we just answered that. And then on top of that, there are hazards. Many people talk about the school to prison pipeline, but on top of that school to prison pipeline, we also want to talk about the poverty to prison pipeline. And that has a major factor in terms of what we see as brick and mortar as our educational systems is more than just being able to reach the matters of the mind. You have to be able to reach the matters of the heart. And so a lot of times we have to understand that the brick and mortar buildings, or now that we're remote, that is the emergency room. And when we fail to realize that, I could have gone to school to get a degree in teaching and all these other beautiful things, but if I'm not able to have a relationship, and if I'm not able to have the spirit of discernment to connect the child when they are in need to the proper resource, then we lose. We all lose.
And I will just chime in and say this part that I've heard people say a lot, that when we are miseducated, the hazard is we got 4.0 GPAs at our school, but when we go to another school that they had different resources, we're at the bottom of the class. We're struggling. We need tutoring. We need this because we wasn't properly prepared. Yeah, we was the top at this, but this is the top of, kind of not, you know what I mean? And so now we become the bottom at something where people have got better education, better resources, better, they understand things. They know how to use computers. They know how to search Google for real and do all that stuff that wasn't taught because we only got one computer in our computer lab. And does it work today? You know what I mean? So yes, it does have hazard effects on us.
If I can add the other part of the hazards that, and again, I don't know if people may like my answers all the time, but I do not want to discount us in the hazards. We can be our own nemesis. And I have seen far too often where parents don't exercise their power as parents. They don't even know and understand what their voice is and how powerful their voice is in the communities where their children go to school. And families don't exercise their rights and privileges as families in the educational process. Everybody has a piece of this puzzle. And oftentimes a big hazard is what the family is not doing.
Mhm.
And I wish I could push parents and children into understanding that education happens in the classroom and in a school, but that's not 100% of education. Teachers can
Right.
say and do, you can have the greatest teacher ever, but if that student does not do what he or she is supposed to do in order to continue learning or to make sure that learning happens, then we are lost in this process. And it becomes a hazard of education. And we are, again, our own nemesis. We cannot continue to do nothing about what is not happening with our children. Parents have to learn how to step up and be an active part of what's going on in the schools. I've seen some school systems turned around because of parent power, but we all, instead of blaming everybody else, we got to look at ourselves a little bit and look inward and say, okay, what's going on with my children in the classroom? And when my child has a 4.0 in this school and somebody else has a 4.0, why does this look different? We got to educate parents and empower parents to do something bigger and greater in our schools.
Man.
And I know Dr. Shaniqua, you about to fall out your seat with the answer to this question to chime in. But as you answer that question, I want to just throw my question in there because it goes with this. Because I know you are the author of a new book called Pineapple Orange Juice. So I know you can tie this in real quick. So I was going to ask the question based on what Jeralyn said. How do we build better relationships between the teachers, the parents, and the students so we can avoid that happening or increase more voice?
And for me, so I'm kind of giving everybody, I hope you still buy the book, but I'm about to give you the idea of what it meant. So everybody like pineapple orange juice, where that come from? And that comes from because I was the head of deans at a particular school on the south side of Chicago. And to sum up the story real quick, I had a parent who had 2 children who were like running havoc. And the only person that they could come to and confide in was me. But I didn't go this far in education, and I'm the head of dean for this entire school to babysit 2 individuals. And so it was a egregious situation that happened this particular day. I called the mom. She called me everything. You hear that? Everything but a child of God. And I held the phone because one of the rules for the school at that particular time is that the parent has to hang up first. Now, keep in mind, you don't know my background. You don't know what I've been through. So for me to have to take that type of abuse over the phone was a trigger, and I had to really check myself. I didn't snap out, but what ended up happening is the 2 boys were looking at me like, I told you, Dr. Jones, our mama be off the chain. I'm looking like, so then while I'm talking to the 2 boys, the mom calls back and was like, gee, we shouldn't even be going through nothing like this. You know, we shouldn't even be arguing. I'm like, we shouldn't be arguing. Like, you just cursed me out. But fast forward, she said, do me a favor though. You know, if you gotta, get the boys home to me, can you stop at the liquor store in Michigan? And can you give me some Tito's and pineapple orange juice? And so that's how that book came about, because that's just one of many of the cases and scenarios that I've experienced over the years. And it goes back to what Dr. Harris is saying, is that I know what it's like to not feel empowered. I know what it's like to not know how to effectively use your voice, because many times we come from a background that says that you're to be seen and not heard. So when you do have an opportunity to use your voice, you don't use it in the most proper way possible. And so what happens is that's where that barrier is created, because if I'm angry and you don't know how to channel your anger, the next thing you know, you're going to pop off and I can't hear you anymore if you yelling. And so therefore, how can we all humanize the experiences and understand that you got to take a step back? I could meet with this student every day, but if I'm implementing a new way of life and trying to transition from that poverty to a wealth mindset that's based off restorative justice or whatever the case may be, they go back home to a dysfunctional environment, and that dysfunction has become their norm because that's all they know. Then where do we go from there? And so for me, one of the things I've been able to do, I'm going door to door. Like I was, me and that mom, we cool now, but look what we had to go through. Because what it took me having to take a step back, like I've been there before. I've been angry and I didn't know how to use my voice. And I was seen as the bad mom that when you said my name, all the teachers in the lounge like, oh my God, right? And so I know what that's like. So because I know what that's like, I know how I have to rearrange the way I do, the techniques, the way I talk, the way I walk, so that I can approach you in a way to say, like, I see you. Now, what can I do to help you? Because once you start showing that you help the parent, then they're more able to understand and see you and humanize your experience as an educator to say, like, now let's move forward and do what we need to do to redefine this village.
And so in that same vein, how do we how do we educate parents to have that proper conversation? You know, back in the day, they used to have like, is it called PTA meetings or whatever? I don't know if they have that anymore, where you come all into the gym room and everybody get to get on the mic and say something like, lean on me. But, but how do we open a door to have that conversation and those critical conversations for that everybody can get on the same page and that parents can have that voice that impacts the school? Is that happening?
We still have PTOs, but they're
PTOs, okay.
small groups of people, really small representations of the parent population. We have to do what Dr. Shaniqua said, go door to door. We've got to do some extreme measures. And that's sad to say, we've got to go through some extreme measures to get parents in the building, to get their faces in the place, and to get them to trust us. And one of the greatest ways to get a parent to trust you is to have their child trust you. If a student trusts their teacher, if that parent hears that teacher's name in the home, because remember, in your home, you hear some names of teachers, whether good or bad.
Right.
Parents begin to trust you because their child trusts you. And that comes from having a genuine love for children and a genuine concern for their success. And they know that. Kids are not stupid. They know it and they feel that. So you're starting with a trust base. Then if you knock on their door, and I know a lot of systems don't allow that, but when I say extreme measures, it's going to take a collective effort of community organizations, schools, churches, people who really understand that we've got to come together to pull parents in, to support parents, to build a parent base, and to build some type of parent structure that educates these parents, that empowers them, and so that they can go into their children's schools and be active in their children's education. It's going to have to take some extreme measures.
Wow.
Real quick, I know one of the things that's happening in the South Suburban Cook County area through a grant that the Cook County Southland Juvenile Justice Council received is that we've been able to work with a lot of the school districts in the South Suburban Cook County area and provide parent universities by district. And those parent universities consist of all the resources that parents would need. We're not even getting to the academic part. We get into basic necessities. Oh, you say you need utility assistance. You need rental assistance. Oh, here is a program through CETA. Did you know your child that once you rent this electronic and you have to give it back at the end of the school year? Here is Wendy Clark. She is able to give all you need to do is it takes less than 2 minutes to complete this application, and your child will have a brand new Dell computer at the end of the school year, delivered directly to your door. And we're not asking about income requirements. So when you start to meet people where they are, it's one thing to talk about the problem, but I need the solution to come right behind it. And if you have the solution, if you have the resources, we can no longer just go by having this colorful handbook that the only person that has it is the social worker to say like, hey, go down to Miss such and such office. And then, I call it being RFP pimp. Like a lot of community organizations are great until they're not great anymore, because when the funds move and they, go up, apply for different grants, then now their mission and vision has changed. So the services they initially was passionate about, they no longer serve because now they're chasing the money and not the passion. So then when I come into a school and say I need a resource, and ego is the number one killer. So if a parent does have the opportunity and autonomy and the flexibility to come and meet you where you are and say I'm in need, and then you give them this little referral slip, and then they go get the help, and they like, oh, we don't offer that anymore. We only do that on Mondays. Now you just create whatever barrier that was let down has now been built even higher.
Right.
So we got to be very careful about how we operate.
Right. So I'm gonna change the subject just a little bit. It's kind of relates to each other. That's why I'm trying to make sure we kind of keep it related. But so we talked about the parents, and we're talking about having that great relationship between the parent, the teacher, and the students. And in our climate today, where we already know that salaries is not there for teachers, they don't get paid as much as they should for what they do and the impact that they're making. They're teaching our kids. Like that's the most critical piece of the puzzle of being a human is education. So I don't understand that part. But anyway, I digress. But in your opinions, do you think that teachers are getting the support that they need as well to also play the role that they play in the classrooms? And if not, who should be responsible for them getting that type of support? Jeralyn, we'll start with you.
Oh, I love that question, especially because I was a principal for 23 years. And I believe that every good project starts with a good leader. And every good project, whatever it is, needs a good, strong leader. And principals make a difference. School leadership makes a difference. And I know we have district-wide or district-level leadership. That's critical and important too. So principals need to be supported by their district leaders. But I have seen schools excel because of great principals, right? You have really strong administration in a school, administrators who are really concerned, who are really wise, who are knowledgeable, and who have that same passion and are driven by passion, then I have seen schools flourish because of it. And so who's responsible? Although everybody can say we are all responsible, but principals make a difference. Principals make a huge, and they are not paid enough for what they have to experience. But principals make a huge difference. And when you have good principals who support teachers by providing the PDs that they need, the resources that they need, who are backing them when it comes to the community, when it comes to parents and students, and who are making sure they're trained to be quality teachers, that's what really makes a difference.
Awesome. Excellent. Excellent. Dr. Shaniqua, you want to answer the question?
I'm right with Dr. Harris on that way.
Yeah, she killed that question. So we tiptoed around this and we talked about it. Dr. Shaniqua hinted on it a little bit, dealing with the pandemic. So with the pandemic coming into the classrooms and trying to kind of changing the atmosphere, changing school and learning as we know it, right? And it's so funny because I hated online school, right? In college and whatever I hated it. So I don't even understand how these kids younger than me can even do it, because I'd be like, what, huh? Because I couldn't pay attention. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, right? So but anyway, I digress from that too. But right now with this climate with COVID, what do you guys are seeing as the cons of what happened due to the pandemic? And if so, is it any silver linings or pros that came out of with the COVID situation? So we'll start with you, Dr. Shaniqua, on this one.
I kind of touched on that in terms of, especially our Black and brown children have access to technology in a way that they may have not all have not had before, so that they are more equipped and not ill-equipped when they decide, or if they decide to go on to higher education. And so that's been one of the major things that I've seen. Another huge thing I've seen, and I was reading an article earlier, and it's called "For Some Black Students, Remote Learning Has Offered a Chance to Thrive." And someone tagged me in that, because what I've seen, I receive over 5,000 students in terms of discipline, and trying to make that transition in the midst of a pandemic to go from zero tolerance, which, I could go all off into Senate Bill 100, Public Act 99-0456. I could tell you the from beginning to end how that whole legality go about in terms of how we see discipline, and having to move away from zero tolerance policy and having all alternative possibilities in place. So I say all that to say that when it came to this article, and it was so direct for what we're talking about today, is that I have seen many of my students who've had that X on their back or their forehead because of some situations that have happened in the past, that many people, unfortunately, in the educational sector continue to see that student as a problem, and they have not seen that child as a person. And so now that these particular children, not all, are now at home in the comforts of their own home, they're thriving more now than ever before, because they have the autonomy to move around how they need to, as well as not being seen openly as a failure. So that's one thing. Another thing that, of course, I've seen school districts, and I'll challenge them. Like, I understand that you would love to have your children to have their cameras on, but I'm one of the people that if that child, if you're the teacher and you're asking a question, that child still has the opportunity to communicate, to let you know they are actively participating, but the camera is off. How do we meet them where they are? Because I'm not understanding how they are suspended from online situation because they didn't have a camera on. Because now I need that adult to take a deep look within themselves, like, what's the hold up? Because that child, I mean, we have the whole dialogue of the chat of them answering the questions. So now I'm looking back at you. And then that goes back to, a lot of the work that I've been able to do is, work with teachers, not the teachers that believe in restorative justice, the teachers like, if a child is an issue in my class, I want them out. They want that instant gratification. So how do you help those people who the only way of thinking is that poverty mindset of zero tolerance policy? And it's been difficult, but it's been worth it, because now it's not a request, it's a requirement.
Man, you said a whole mouthful there, but the one thing you said that is key, before I'm gonna let you come in on this, Jeralyn, is it's that kid that is ostracized a lot because of something they did, that X. That is so true, because I experienced that a lot in school as well. Like if you associated for doing something bad, every class, every teacher, it's like they send a note to each other. That student. It's like, can I get a fresh start? So I love that you said that. That's powerful. That is powerful. Jeralyn?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And of course, we've been thinking about that question from the beginning of this e-learning experience. One of the benefits of this e-learning is that our administrators and teacher coaches and the directors and deans don't have to be so caught up with and distracted by student behavior issues. Their offices aren't full of students in trouble. They don't have to, so they're pouring into training teachers, right? We're spending way more time on teacher training and being able to coach teachers and get into classrooms and see teachers and do observations and coach, because they're not spending the time with dealing with the distraction of the discipline issues that happen when students are misbehaving. So that has been, we all celebrate that. Like we've had no suspensions and no fights this year.
Wow.
Can you believe that? A whole school year, no fights. That's a plus, right?
Yep,
and
right.
So that's wonderful. But at the same time, this e-learning experience is not ideal for most students. And guess what? It's not ideal for most teachers either. My students have poured out to me, Dr. Harris, I hate this. I can't. I have some students who just go under and go absent for days because they go into depression. So the social emotional issues have been elevated at this time. They're having a hard time really keeping up, paying attention, and just staying focused. It's really hard for them to stay focused. But I had to say to my students, guess what? I'm depressed too. I can't focus. I don't know what's going on. This is new for me. I don't like it. I started off this school year saying that if I got to do this for much longer, I won't teach anymore, because I hate teaching remotely. I hate it. I can't, but I do it and do what I have to do and try to do my best with it, because it's all I've got right now. And so I keep saying to my students, you got to learn what to do with what you cannot change. We got to do life. You have to learn what to do with what you have no control over. You got to do it. And so many students, I see what one of the benefits is, they're seeing discipline and grit, developing grit that they've never thought they had. And guess what? Education, and here again, people ain't gonna like me again, but if it wasn't for if I had my way, there'd be no such thing as grades. Sorry, y'all, educators.
You are not by yourself.
Can I say it like this? Grades are stupid. And then we'll talk about that another time. There would also be an understanding that education is so much more than math, social studies, science, and reading.
Yes, ma'am.
On your job today, where you're working in your careers today, how much of what you learned in math, social studies, science, and reading are you actually applying? Like, remember, practice makes proficiency, right? If you practice it, we don't practice. And so that's important, because it gets us to where we are, and we need it for daily living. So what I'm saying is, I'm not discounting the academics, but I'm also saying, can you also teach me some social emotional skills? Can you teach me grit? Can you teach me? Can you deal with my compassion, my attitude? Can you teach me some trades? Like, I believe that education should be so much more than academics. And I wish schools would transform that experience. But now, guess what this pandemic is doing? This e-learning is pushing us to a place where we've got to learn how to teach social emotional skills like never before. And so it was coming up. It was on the brink there. A lot of places were doing it. But guess what? If you don't do this now while kids are falling into these ruts, then we're really going to be in trouble. So now schools are saying, okay, we need this social emotional. We got to teach kids how to handle their emotions. We got to teach them how to develop grit, develop disciplines, because those are the things that are going to get them through life and help them work with people as they grow into adulthood.
You hitting it.
Oh my God.
Man, I hope people watch this. I mean,
what a collection plate. Man, Dr. Harris.
Come on now.
So another question I want to ask really quick, because we touched on just a little bit in the beginning. I think Dr. Jeralyn, you touched on this. How do we prevent teachers from having teacher burnout? Okay, because you have teachers that are They come out great. They come out of school. They ready. They got their bag. They coming in ready to put stars on people's foreheads. And then all of a sudden, you know, they're not that great no more. So so if a teacher's watching this today, from you guys' standpoint, being that you was a principal, Dr. Shaniqua, all the work that you're doing with restorative justice, how can we get a teacher to find her fire again if that's truly her calling?
So I know for me, one of the things we've been able to do is we've been able to outsource and bring different individuals on board to make sure we have yoga and meditation, to make sure that, you know, you take your self-care days and don't allow, you know, a lot of times you get in the gist of doing the work. Oh, I'll let them roll over. Don't let your days roll over. Boo, take all them days. Use every last one of mental health, whatever the case may be, and understand that it takes self-care is more than just getting your nails and your hair and your toes done and whatever else. It's about that soul cleansing and always being able to have the power of self-reflection, to sit with yourself, to go back to your why. And a lot of times your why may change. And when it changes, be able to understand the logistics of what that looks like, as well as, you know, not just the yoga and meditation. We've done meal prepping classes. I created a course about trauma and empathy. We talk about adverse childhood experiences, because a lot of us, you know, all of us have a backstory, but have you been able to heal and be able to be, you know, be your best self and be the most productive individual you possibly can be if you have not been able to address certain things? You know, we have therapists that come in, you know, it's a lot of different things that can be done, but we want to make sure that we not only support the students and the families, that we're supporting the teachers as well. You know, what does that look like? So I've had teachers that may contact me like, Dr. Jones, I need to fill myself up again. So can you step in and do a conversation with our youth that might motivate me as well? And so that gives that teacher a whole week, because I do like a series to just really just sit in the background. They could turn their camera off, do it, you know, whatever it is they need to do, but know that they have an administrator that's going to support them, so that not only are we going to talk, we're not talking about, like you said, those core subjects. We're talking about life. What is the life application perspectives that we need to discuss? And especially for my students who may be in like my other buildings, like Outlook and Peace, because they are really like an internal alternative school. So we don't outsource them, but at the same time, how can we humanize your experience? Where did we go wrong? Or where, you know, what were some of the things that happened in your life at that particular time? And how can you apply that today to make sure that this particular situation don't happen to you again? What have you learned? Because if you haven't learned anything, it's going to happen again. Right. And so these are the conversations we have, and not just with the students, but we're having it with the teachers as well. And again, it's all about being able to humanize everyone.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that works for me, first of all, pay me so I can go on vacations and rest.
Come on.
Give me some, make sure I know I got a good vacation coming. If I have a good trip coming, a good getaway, and I'm looking forward to it, I'll teach for a few weeks until I get there, and it helps me feel good. So y'all want to pay us more, we'll do better. But the other thing is, we want to be supported and respected. Teachers, just a little bit of support and respect from our community and from our staff, the people that work in our schools and people around us. If we could just be a little bit more respected, that helps with our endorphins, right? It helps us to feel better. It helps us to burn out less. And that's huge, because too often teachers aren't seen as respected. We're not respected like other careers are. We haven't been. But so another thing with that is, not only do we receive support, but small successes are huge. When I see something happen, something that works in my school, when I see students learn, that keeps pushing me. It may take a lot of drive and hard work to get there. So I'm saying that to say that in order to keep teachers from burning out, keep pouring into the quality education that needs to happen, so that we can experience success, even if it's one small success at a time. Right? Because when we step on those successes, we build on them and we use them to continue to help us grow and develop. And of course, that self-care thing is huge. The other thing that worked for me as a principal now, and we have this, I see this, I'm new at my school now, but where I was, we were not a traditional school. We laughed a lot. Like, humor was a requirement.
Wow.
You have to have.
I know you love that, because you love to laugh and crack jokes.
Listen, we played jokes on each other. We pranked each other. I ain't gonna tell you what school I used to work
I
at.
saw some of your pranks. Yes, I love it. I love it.
But you have no idea how that we were a family. And one of the things I love at where I am now, and I'll say where I'm now, I'm at Longwood High School. One of the things that attracted me to that school was when I learned from so many people, the first thing they said is, we're a family. That's huge. That means we love each other. We cry when others cry. We laugh with each other, and we pull together and work together. But that being able to laugh like hard till tears fall is humongous. We had one of the lady we worked with for 20 some years just passed away. Like that took us for a loop. But one of the things that's carrying us further is all of the laughter and the fun that we had. Like those kinds of things are so critical. And I don't think it's just for schools. That's critical in any workplace to keep people from burning out. Have fun doing what you're doing. If you're not having fun with it, you might just burn out.
You're right. That's what you're right with anything. You're absolutely correct. Laughter is good for the soul, for sure.
Yes,
I asked that question because another question had came up that I was going to segue into early on in the conversation, but now is a perfect time because we talked about what we would want to encourage a teacher that's going through something. So what are some of the things that you both try to instill in your students?
So for me, it's just been able to model the way, oftentimes when you say doctor anything, societal stigmas have it captivated in your mind that this is what a doctor look like. So for me, I'm the total opposite of what that may look like. And so they know I love my gym shoes. They know I love my hoodies. And I've been able to model the way by saying that this is who I am. And I'm not saying that I won't make adjustments as needed, but I've learned that I for the last 10 years, I've not worked. I've been on assignment. And so being able to tune in, a lot of times we can't talk about religion and spirituality, but what I have been able to do because my position is so unique is being able to share my own personal journey that allows them to understand that what you see here today is a miracle, and you're a miracle too. We're all miracles in our own right. And so do not be afraid of where you've been, because these should be 3 different individuals that you come across in your life: who you were, who you are, and who you will be. And they should never be the same. And so when we start to have those life conversations, like I'm not big on talking about, you can spell atmosphere and you can spell it quickly in less than 2 seconds. But how does that make you a better individual? How does that make you feel on the inside? When you go to bed at night, how do you feel? So we talk about emotions. We talk about, those are the things I instill in them. And then I also, just being able to model the way. And then a lot of times you don't want to learn about restorative justice, because if I say, hey, take this RJ 101, it's like, well, nobody got time for that. But if I say, hey, let me tell you about what we, let's talk about what's really happening in our lives. Because how can we, I'm big on doing a check-in. And one of the things we do with a check-in, and I'll make this real quick, is, we have the pain chart. Everybody's been to the emergency room in some form or fashion, whether it's for yourself or for someone else. And I remember being young, before emojis, it was numbers, from 0 to 10. Now you have not just the numbers, you also have the emojis to go along to, to give people the visual. And so when they walk in or when they're online, that's the first thing we talk about. So if a student come and say, like, I'm at a 0, I'm in the worst pain possible, I can't go on with the lesson for the day.
Right.
But oftentimes and that goes back to what you said, Dr. Harris, you had to have great leadership that gives you the autonomy to make those type of decisions, to say that, yeah, I understand this is what we need to cover, but if I can't address that this child is at a 0, he's not going to learn. The other students are looking at you like, I know you just saw he's not feeling well. So what you going to do about that? So you have to be able to model the way and again, tap into that spirit of discernment. So those are some of the things that I would share.
Awesome.
I probably would echo those things. When I shared first week of school, I shared a story with my students. The teachers had to share a video presentation, your personal story with your students. And it was probably after about 3 or 4 days, maybe day 4 of knowing them. When they found out, I shared with them, I was a teen mom. I had my first child at 16. I was a little thug, a little bit. I don't know if I was a thug like Dr. was, but I'm just kidding. But I had to fight. I fought. I bust somebody's head back in the day. Not today. And I'm still trying to shake them up and loose. But I tell them, but they look at me like, what? For real. And then I said to him, I've been there. We ain't had no food sometimes. My mother was a single mom, and she worked her butt off. Like, she would work 16 hours a day to make sure we had what we had. And she was a teacher like crazy, but we struggled. We struggled. I grew up in the hood. I went to 21 different schools. It wasn't easy for me. But what I try to instill in them is having a goal and a specific vision. I knew, and I'm gonna tell you this, I made up my mind when that man came to my house, nobody home, and shut off our electricity. And I said, hey, can you wait till my mom comes home? I'm 13. You're gonna turn our lights off and he said, tell your mother to pay her bills. And he slammed my door in my face, and everything went dark.
Wow.
Listen, from that day forward, I set a goal in my mind. I set a goal in my mind, and from that day forward, I tell my students just to do what I did. Set your affection on that goal and make sure you do not compromise getting there. Even if some things happen, you got a few fights along the way, you be hungry on the way, you might have a baby along the way, but you've got to always have, I don't care what you don't know. Look it up. I am not here to teach you how to remember anything or memorize algebra or memorize English, because you can look that up on the internet. I'm here to teach you how to be gritty. And what I want my students to know is that it takes grit and it takes resolve to get to where we want to be. And one challenging questions it brings students back to focus, especially my boys. When they're cutting up and don't want to do, I asked the students today, I said, so what you going to tell your son when he's doing what you're doing?
Come on.
It makes them stop. What are you going to tell? You're going to be a mother or a father one day. What you going to tell your children about your behaviors and your actions? So if you don't do it for yourself, do it for your children that you don't even have yet.
Come on. Drop the mic, Dr. Harris. Drop it.
That was good. Both of y'all gave some excellent.
Man, I got the chills.
Excellent answers. I mean, throughout today. I mean, I'm all questioned out, really. I done went through everything, and I caught some good questions out here in the audience. I mean, so I'm not going to, just prolong the program to prolong it, but you guys gave some excellent answers. I mean, we had an audience today. Some people stuck with us the whole time. I wish more people can see this. I'm going to share this. I need people to see this. Like, I'm going to go into some groups and post this video, because y'all gave some awesome nuggets and answers to these questions that people need to hear. And the conversation just needs to be had, period. I don't know why, as a community, we shy away from it. I had my biggest audience talking about love, which is great. I think people are trying to interject love more into our community too. People love Black love. I see that now. So that was like my biggest shows. But these other shows I've been having, I think, are key conversations as well, that we just can't keep sweeping under the rug. We have to have those conversations, because parents need to know that the reason their kids are not being educated properly is because of their voice. Things that we're seeing today. Students need to know that teachers do really care about them, that you guys are not, you exist. It's not unicorns. I mean, you may not be a lot of you guys, but Dr. Shaniqua's journey is to duplicate some of her ways of teaching and her love and her direction towards education. So people need to see that you guys exist. And I'm so elated that I had you guys on the show today. I will let you guys close out with any closing comments that you may want to have, or something that you thought of, when you're talking, you're like, oh, I forgot to say that. Any of those moments you have, you can go ahead and speak to that right now.
So I just want to say I am honored to be on here with Dr. Shaniqua. She bad, y'all. I really love it. I appreciate.
That's all about you.
Well, I love your journey, and I love Sherry. This is my mom commenting down there, but I love your journey, and I love sharing with you and women like you. And if we can, what needs to happen is women need to, not just women, but I know this is Women's History Month, but people have to pull together, because we can't fight this fight alone. And we have to have a strong determination to keep pushing. And again, after 30 years, I'm not burned out. I'm just as excited today as I was my first year of teaching. I don't know if I'm gonna say that next year, but that's how I feel today. So I just want to keep pushing and keep just chipping away at this thing.
Yep. I'm just honored. Once I realized who I was going to be on with, it was just a perfect, that was God. It was ordained by God, because oftentimes when you are in leadership positions, you don't have a go-to. And even though you may not have been a direct go-to, and we don't talk on the phone or, chit chat, I have admired you for years, Dr. Harris, and I followed your journey. And just being able to cross paths in ways that you may not even, understood. I think that's amazing. And then Carrie, you already know what it is. You part of the team, and God has just been great. And I'm thankful to have the platform that I have. And I wouldn't have it if I didn't have the foundation. And I don't regret going through anything I ever went through, because I wouldn't be where I am today.
Absolutely. Well, again, I can't say much more about how much it was an honor. And like you said, it definitely was ordained, because I had some people this show is going to be totally different. Just put it like that. And so, but God knew what needed to happen. And so I'm okay with that. I always, I'm only doing this platform because of what he told me to do. Awesome. I'm going to say, well, how you going to monetize it? I don't care about monetizing it. I care about getting this information out to my community, to the people that watch it. That's what I care about. I know whatever's going to come from it, it'll come. But I'm doing it because of the passion that I have in my heart for people to get educated and get information that they need, whether it was social, emotional, what I talked about, emotional intelligence, or whether it's talking about faith, So it's important that we have these conversations. And today was one of my favorite. I will say that it was one of my favorite conversations. With that said, today is probably going to be my one of my major shows before I take a little break, audience. So I'll be back. I'm having one more show next week, but it's going to be a light show. It's going to be super fun. I'm not telling nobody what it is till I'll post something about it. But I will take a break for April. And then when I come back in May, we're going to take, men is going to take the stage. So this month I did a lot of things about women. So in May, it's going to be all about men. So stay tuned for that, so we can hear some powerful men speak about some of the same subjects, or, something a little different. You never know. But I do appreciate the audience staying in with us and watching. And again, thank you, ladies, for being on here. Thank you. One more thing I think I want to do. Dr. Shaniqua and Dr. Harris, I don't know if you have any books or anything. Do you guys want to plug yourself a little bit?
Say less. I'm big on. I'm trying to transition because I maxed out with the people I can have on Facebook. So please make sure you follow me on Instagram at Purple Path by Dr. J. My latest book is called Pineapple Orange Juice: Bridging the Gap Between Parents and Educators. I really go in about humanizing our experiences, especially mine as an educator, as being the Olivia Pope of Education, all these different things, and some of the scenarios that I like. One of the ones I discussed earlier about the pineapple orange juice, how the whole book came about. And so just being able to give that sense of hope for everyone. And then I have all other type of stuff at www.purplepathbydrj.com. So please make sure you follow and visit my website.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There go one of my students. Hey, Dr. J. That's my boo.
And I don't know if I have anything to plug. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram, my first and last name, and no books. That's probably
on Instagram.
It's probably shameful by now, but
good. You got some good stuff going. You should
do what I can. I get in where I fit in. That's about it.
Well, again, I appreciate that knowledge, and I'm excited to go back and watch this myself and put some stuff down back on paper. But thank you guys, and we'll see you guys later, everybody. Bye bye. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.